This is the Scarab, an American car built in Culver City, California. The lines are European, the power plant Chevrolet Corvette, and you won't find it on sale at your local car dealers. Lance Reventlow dreamed the car into existence as an American answer to the challenge of Ferrari, Maserati, Porsche, and Jaguar. Chuck Daigh, mechanic driver. His ideas helped make the Scarab a practical reality. In this Riverside, California meeting of 3 racing groups, Daigh and Reventlow are typical of the semi-professional sports car group. Dwayne Carter, director of competition for United States Auto Club, functions as a race observer. Ray Crawford, he's competed in almost every league. His big win, the 1954 Pan American Road Race. Bill Cheeseburg, Tucson, Arizona, joined the 100-mile-an-hour club this year at Indianapolis. And Troy Ruttman, then barely eligible to vote, won the 1952 Indiana Speed Classic. Another USAC veteran, Johnny Parsons, won the 500 in 1950. And Aston Martin DBR2, Roy Salvadori of London, England, completes the third side of the triangle, representing the European driving fraternity. Richie Ginther, popular sports car competitor, drives a Ferrari. Phil Hill, tops in the international circuit, conquered the 24-hour Le Mans race this year. Jean Behra of Paris, France, another man whose name is mentioned wherever people gather to talk racing. Carroll Shelby, 1956 United States Amateur Champion, pilots a Maserati. And it just wouldn't be a race without popular and colorful race promoter J.C. Agajanian. On Saturday morning, the big rush started. Entrants and pit personnel lined up for their credentials in a spirit of organized confusion. Then it was inside to get your race program and find out what was happening. But something had already happened. Lance Reventlow, on a practice run, got into trouble with Scarab number 16. So scratch 1 car for the team. This left 2 Scarabs. Number 5 with Chuck Daigh at the wheel. And now, Reventlow in number 3 taking over from Bruce Kessler. The signal to start your engines ushers in a magic moment on any track. Phil Hill in his red Ferrari sits in the middle of the front row. On his right, Lance Reventlow in Scarab 3. On the other side, Chuck Daigh in Scarab 5. Poised and ready for whatever the next 200 miles will bring, other contenders rev their engines eager to be on their way. Dan Gurney right behind Reventlow. And in the third row, Roy Salvadori and Richie Ginther sit side by side. This is the beginning of a journey which ends where it started, but only after one man with Lady Luck riding on his shoulder has proved that he could drive 200 miles at high speed, faster and safer than his contemporaries. Past turn 1 into turn 2. John von Neumann in a Ferrari, jockeying for position, hits Lance Reventlow from the rear, then goes out of control, plunging off the course into a field, as Reventlow, with rear-end damage, which was to cause him trouble later on in the race, continues into the S-curves. At turn 6, Chuck Daigh has taken the lead with Phil Hill right behind him. So started a hot 24-lap battle between these men and cars, and a chance for the spectators to watch 2 experts at work fighting out for the first position. Through turn 7, the field is still jockeying for driving room. But Daigh and Hill, now ahead of the rest, go through turns 7 and 8 and head for the back straightaway with the others trailing behind. Reaching the end of the straight, Phil Hill moves into the lead as they follow the sweeping banked curve on turn 9. And Daigh, for the moment, is riding along in the slipstream provided by Hill's Ferrari. At the start-finish line, the officials and pit crews got their first look at the race progress as Hill and Daigh flashed by on their way into the second lap. The old adage of where there's smoke, there's fire didn't prove out in this case. Oil from a leaking line dropped into a very hot exhaust system, and the resultant smoke was quite spectacular. At turn 6, it's Hill, still in front by 1 car length. But the kinks of the course were already starting to cause trouble for some. Through 7, no change in position for the leaders. Lance Reventlow, still pushing his damaged Scarab, follows with Dan Gurney just behind him. On the next time around, Daigh and Hill are driving almost side by side, fighting it out on the curves and straightaways. Number 135, Al Markelson, should have been a road builder. For before the race was over, he and several others had created a new path on the outside of turn 8. Bill Pollock in the Dean Van Line's Lister Corvette spins out, and making a nice recovery, got started again. Then Phil Hill had the lead through turn 9. And flashing through the start-finish line, the stopwatches gave him only a split-second lead, as Daigh hung on like he was glued in position. Now the situation has changed again. Daigh in front with Hill, still fighting it out through the S-curves and up the hill into turn 6. At this point, both leaders are getting into some traffic, having lapped some of the slower entries. Accidents are seldom, if ever, funny. But this one had its humorous points. Johnny Parsons piled the Chuck Porter Special into the fence on turn 6 and climbed nonchalantly out to survey the damage. Worried officials told him, "Johnny, you can't leave it there." "Well, gentlemen," he said, "just what do you propose that I do about it?" After sitting for a few minutes at the side of this busy thoroughfare, Johnny got the car started again and headed down the hill for the pit area. His troubles were typical of most of the Indianapolis drivers, as they were forced out of the race one by one through various mishaps. Troy Ruttman out of the race, watched from the start-finish line. Bill Cheeseburg in a Curtis Buick is another example. Slowing down but not giving up, he was finally forced to call it a day on the short straight going into turn 7 when the car quit running. But he was to have lots of company, for 24 out of 42 starters were forced out before the finish of the race. Back at start-finish, Phil Hill is running in first place as the seesaw battle for the lead continued. A slight wind and drifting sand at different points on the course increased the hazards as skids and spinouts became more frequent. Phil Hill, coming into turn 6, pushed even harder to increase his slight lead. Then Clem Proctor in a Chevy Special missed the road completely and wound up way out in the boondocks. Al Markelson continues his off-the-course road building project on turn 8. But he wasn't the only one with problems on this turn. A tricky one with a progressively sharper curve right at the beginning of the back straightaway. And again on turn 8, the same car, one lap later. Then began what was later described as an unfortunate incident. Lance Reventlow, with a damaged rear end on Scarab 3, sustained when he was hit by von Neumann in the first lap, has been black flagged off the track because of a leak in his fuel tank. Making emergency repairs, he indicated that the car was all ready to go. But pit officials put thumbs down, claiming that the emergency repairs were not adequate. To say that Lance disagreed would be stating the situation mildly, and he started for the timing stand to state his case to the officials. A hot exchange of opinions took place, with no one conceding a point. The ruling stood, and Reventlow was still out of the race. While some observers might regard the whole matter as a tempest in a teapot, it should be remembered that these men who race are deeply dedicated to this sport and regard everything about it with the utmost sincerity. Now the hope of the Scarab team rested on Chuck Daigh, and for them, things were looking better all the time. Phil Hill has lost several laps through car troubles. A gas line too close to the exhaust manifold has brought about a vapor lock condition. And although he returns gamely to the race, Phil is so far behind that he cannot hope to catch his rapid rival Chuck Daigh. Jean Behra in a Porsche has been driving a brilliant race, leading in the under 2,000cc class. Moving down to turn 9, the action came thick and fast as car after car spun out. Floyd Bird of Inglewood spun and came to a dead stop. Then Bill Pollock in the Dean Van Line Special went into a long, spectacular skid which left him backwards. He made a nice recovery by driving into the infield and back in the race. Chowski in the Motor Trend Special also lost the groove here, but dodging the oncoming traffic got turned around and continued on in the race. Back on turn 6, Daigh still continues his lead, putting his Scarab into the turns a little easier than he had done when Phil Hill was breathing down his neck. And Hill, many laps behind, is still gamely fighting to keep his Ferrari out of the pit. The end of the race approaches, and for Chuck Daigh and his crew come the worry of fuel consumption. Do they have enough in the tank to finish the race? Were their pre-race calculations correct? Can Daigh get over the finish line without a pit stop? Or worse yet, will he run out of fuel in some remote part of the course just a few laps from victory? These are the worries which beset those who race, as they watch and pray that nothing will happen in these last few moments to cancel out a brilliant job of driving. While 70,000 people held their breath, Daigh went streaking down the back straightaway, then through turn 9 into the approach to the finish line. Bearing down on the checkered flag, victory becomes a certainty, and Chuck Daigh makes it, winning the first United States Grand Prix. Chuck Daigh, the most popular man at the Riverside International Raceway. The late Clay Smith would certainly like to have seen this, for it was he who gave Chuck his early training in mechanics and the intricacies of racing. Congratulations from wife Doris and his two lovely children, Denise and Chucky. Daigh, deaf as a post for motor noise, gets the well wishes of Dwayne Carter and Luigi Lazowski of USAC and Paul Schisler from the Los Angeles Times-Mirror Corporation. Dan Gurney of Riverside was second, while Jean Behra won in the under 2,000 class. Now the traffic jam starts again, as 70,000 hot, tired, and happy fans start for home, with memories of a strongly contested, brilliantly driven race, the United States Grand Prix.